All right. Hello. Good morning. So we actually have kind of our first version of our dependency rag. Um, and just to like quickly summarize, do I have the thing here? Yeah. So what we're really talking about here is that these LLMs, they aren't able to do, like, they give this illusion of being able to write code, but it's based on training data over a long time. So, for example, if you think about just a language like TypeScript or JavaScript, it's trained on like very old versions of JavaScript and TypeScript, but also the very latest, right? So it has a general good understanding of the language, and also languages, they are like forced to be backwards compatible, at least as far as I know. So it's fine that you have like old learnings from a language, because that doesn't make it like stale. But you might see that the LLM kind of approaches the solution like with an old mindset, or not using like um, more common patterns today, because it's just the training data is just a mix of different versions of the language, but it's not like explicitly different versions of the language. It's just old articles that wrote code related to an older version of the language, right? Um, but then you can think about dependencies, and they have a lot of breaking changes, and they can completely change their API surface. And these LLMs are hurt by this as well, right? That they are trained on all these articles and documentation sites, which is just wrong compared to the version you are using. And then it's just the training data itself is old. So any changes to these dependencies that is beyond the date of the training data, that won't be included in the training data. So the LLM has no idea about this. So that is why we think about, in the context of generating code, we need to think about these LLMs as you can trust them to a large extent for understanding languages. Like, it's a language model, not only for human language, but also for code. But you can't trust them for dependencies. And most of the code you write is with dependencies, right? So to actually make an LLM, so that's one part of it. The other part of it is actually generating code that makes sense for a code base. So you want to contribute, so you can ask an LLM to create something generic, and you can copy paste that into your code. But what you really want is that LLM to actually understand your code and generate code relevant for your code base. So that means using the dependencies that's actually in the dependencies and their versions that's actually in the project, and also understand that there is existing code in this project. So that is why we built a code rag and then a dependency rag. And the dependency rag is basically just generating usage examples of that dependency based on the typings of that dependency and the README. And then you can argue that it should also go and scrape any documentation site that's referenced, and maybe that's necessary. But then it starts getting a little bit iffy again, because if your dependency is older, the documentation site might be wrong, right? So regardless, it needs to prioritize the typings, and so it needs to first prioritize the typings. The typings is the most reliable source of truth, because if the typings are wrong, like the library author or the dependency author wouldn't be able to build the dependency, right? So that is most likely to be the truth. And then the README, since it's part of the same like Git history, it's likely to be correct, but that can be wrong, right? I've had examples where I made changes to the code and the typing is correct, then I forgot to update the README. But it's more reliable than a website. So you have a website, that at least it's like the latest version of the dependency. So you can't check the version, right? But it might have documentation for the different major versions. Like Vue.js, for example, has like one documentation for Vue 2 and one version for Vue 3. But then how do you navigate that? How do you like tell the scraper to use which version? Like how does it, like it gets insanely more complicated. But it could be used as like, if we find a way to like prioritize this, then I think that would definitely help. Like it definitely helps, given that it's the correct information. That's the thing. Yes, and then we have CodeRag. And what's interesting is that I don't want to create an agent where you tell it to change a specific function or implement a specific type or anything like that. It's like a conceptual agent. So you should be able to say things like, I want to log in with my Google account and see my tasks, for example, either expressed as a user story or whatever. And then how does it figure out how to do that? So first of all, it needs to know, it needs to verify if this makes sense for the code base. And the way it makes sense of that is not necessarily by looking at functions and variables. Like this is a conceptual addition to the code base. So the CodeRag that we implemented is a conceptual representation of the code base. So it's not the actual code. It's still all the files, a reference to all the files, but it's a summary of what the files are actually doing. It's actually human language generated by an LLM, like a summary of the file. So now it's like a conceptual request to add something, and it matches that against conceptual existing features of the code base. And currently it's just summarizing each file, but I think it would make sense to summarize each folder as well. So you take the summaries of the files in a folder, and then you create a summary of the folder. And the reason I think that makes sense is that you're not only changing things, you want to add things as well. So how does an LLM know where to add things? It needs to add it, like when you add files in a folder, and that folder needs to have a conceptual representation of what does that folder mean in the code base. We have that implicit knowledge. Like we never think about a folder as having a conceptual meaning for our code base. We think about it as just a way of grouping files, but it actually has a conceptual meaning. So I think that would be really interesting to explore how we can do that. Maybe we should just try to do. Yeah, we're gonna play. Yeah, okay. So that's one thing. So that's one thing we can play with, is to create folder summaries. And then there's also this other aspect of like history and interaction. So like all of this is theory, like based on what I think comes to play in my head when I try to implement something new in a code base. And I know that I have a lot of context related to the history, like a bunch of conversations, PRs, reviews, tickets, but I don't know to what extent that affects my decision to approach an implementation, on my decision on how to approach an implementation. But it is context relevant for the project, that's for sure. But I think that's the last thing I would want to explore. But one thing I do think is important is interaction. So this application or this code base, it has an output, right? That output being just some text, or maybe it's a CLI, or it's a web application, or whatever. It produces some outputs, like someone interacts with the application and then it generates an output. And how do you make an LLM? And that does infer a lot of how I approach implementing something new. Because, for example, with a web application, I personally like clicked around and looked at all the different states of that web application. I have like just this intuition about how it works and how I would introduce new things. Not because I know the code, but because I know the actual output of the code. So that's what I mean about interaction RAG. It's some way to express, and I think that's different for different applications. And since we're looking at web applications there, I think that type of RAG would have to be, at a low level, it would need to be a state chart. Like it would need to describe all the different states the application can be in. And that state chart could be used for different things. It could be used for tests. It could be used to help the LLM navigate an actual browser, to verify that the interactions in the browser works like the state chart describes. Each state in the state chart could have an image of the state of the application related to it. Like it's a way more complicated RAG than code, and like code is the simplest thing. Dependencies, I would say, is after that, and then this interaction or output RAG is the most complicated one. But we are gonna continue with our code and dependency RAG for now, just to see how it helps, and then. Yeah, it would be nice to generate this folder summary. But before we do that, we're gonna fix something in our dependency RAG, because in our agent now, we have this thing called that's reading file, get project file structure. It's this get project dependencies. I don't think we need it. I think we should remove it, and we should rather make our dependency RAG include the description of the dependency in the metadata. The challenge, though, is I don't actually know how LLamaIndex, how metadata actually works. You know what? We're gonna go here and we're gonna see if we can figure this out. So we're using a query engine, right? And it does a query, and then we get an output. So was to give a model an option to query different documents for different questions, for example. You could also imagine that the sum yeah, so I haven't looked at, like, we have this retriever query engine now, I think, or query engine tool. Where is it? Yeah, query engine tool. That's what we have now. And let's see. And I'm very curious about like sub-question query engine. The way I understand that is you basically get parallel retrieval, and then kind of the LLM. So it asks like multiple questions, and then it kind of synthesizes the response from all of those questions. That's some next level shit. So we'll see what we do with that. But I want to understand how metadata actually works, because if I add a description to the metadata of a document, does that become part of the query? So if I query something, will it actually look at the metadata? I feel based on some method, it's not part of the. that is not part of the document text. Yeah, so I think this is more for like so yeah, so you have filters, key, dog ID, value to, filter type, exact match. Yeah, so this is what I'm wondering is, So this is basically just filtering out. So the question would hit both of them, but this is like, so I would imagine filter is more to just filter out a specific type of documents, but we actually want to like make the description part of, we really want to query the descriptions to find the relevant dependency. And I'm not sure if it's even needed. Like maybe it's enough to just, maybe it's enough to just let it go at it. Like just use the dependency rag to figure out what to do. Maybe it doesn't need to know, oh, which dependency should I use? Maybe it's enough to just search for, okay, I have all these dependencies and they all have usage examples, and I have my query or I have this prompt that I got. How would I use these dependencies to? Yeah, I think that, okay, let's try that first. So we're just going to remove that tool, and now the agent still has the dependency rag. So it is able to, use that. Let's see. So we're gonna ask it to. I would like to add. I would like to persist the count in a database. How would you approach that? So I'm just saying, like, it's a very simple application. It only has like the default V template with React, which has a counter. And I'm saying something very ambiguous here. Like, I want you to be able to express something that you could express to a colleague. Like, you're a senior engineer, you have a senior engineer colleague, which basically just means they have a lot of knowledge about the code and experience with the code. And you should be able to express something very ambiguous, and they should just pick up on it. So I would like to persist the count in a database. How would you approach that? So that means this other person knows that there is a counter in the app, and they also know that we have Firebase as a dependency. Like, they have that context. And the agent also needs that context. And we've given it that now. We have the code rag and we have the dependency rag. So it should be able to answer this, given that it's actually using the tools. So what I've done here I've given it some instructions. So first of all, it needs to verify if the prompt is relevant for the project. So that means that I might ask it to persist the tasks in a database, but there aren't any tasks in the project, right? And then only use the dependencies of the project and the related documentation, so that it doesn't come up with like new npm dependencies or wants to install any dependencies and so on. So let's see what happens. So it goes in and it looks at the project file structure. And that's also kind of a rag. It's a very simplified rag. But that's also something that we have in our head. It's like the actual file structure. And yeah, so so this is definitely not what I wanted. But this is the thing. It doesn't use the the dependency rag. And I'm not sure why it doesn't do that. Yeah, it's definitely not following my instructions. So the problem here isn't that the dependency rag isn't working, it's that it doesn't use it. Okay, always use the dependency rag. Do I actually call it dependency rag? Let's call it dependency rag tool. And then we're going to call this code rag tool. Okay. So we're going to say always use the to evaluate what dependencies can be used. Okay, let's ask again. I want the account to be persisted in a database. How would you approach that? Oh, interesting. Okay, so it's actually using the dependency rag tool now, which is great. What? Well, that's interesting. Query database. The provided context does not contain interval. Oh, isn't it in here? Wait. React and the React state for statement. Oh, it doesn't seem to have it. Wait a minute. Didn't we add it? Wasn't it stored? Web assistant, dependency embeddings. So we definitely have Firebase there. Doc store. This is weird. Why didn't it find anything on database? We have explicitly Firebase database. Is it missing something? Wait, which query engine tool did it ask? Did it actually ask the... Ugh, I can't see which query engine tool maybe it was the code... Oh, dependency rag tool. Oh, okay. Dependency rag tool. The provided content does not connect. It primarily focuses on the samples using React and React. That's really weird. Why didn't it get anything on... Oh, look at this. Index store. It doesn't have anything. React states. Oh, that's why. Oh, okay. So something went wrong in the indexing. That's good to know. So let's delete that permanently. Well, let's not delete it, but we're gonna remove Firebase here and we're gonna try to generate it again. I wonder if this is because we do this Add documents. Well, first of all, we need to await it. Oh. Let's see. LLamaIndex, add documents to store. To an existing index. Insert. Service. Oh. Is it insert? I'm probably doing it wrong. Into the index. Yeah, that's probably it. Add documents. Add multiple documents to existing index. Index insert. Okay, so it just looks like I have to do it document by document. So let's do that instead and see what happens. So that would be yeah, by the way, we have to do that. Await promise.all. Yeah, and does it have to do that sequentially? I would expect it needs to do it sequentially. So you can't like, well, we can try, see what happens. Documents, map, insert. Okay, so we need to run that. Oh, I guess it started already. I wonder, does this override? Okay, we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, I wonder, maybe we can look at some, like, is there like a common UI state charts? Yeah, I wonder if there's like a, what would be the best way to, like, how would you teach an LLM? Well, maybe we can try with ChatGPT. I have a web application with a counter. When you click the counter, it increases by, it increments by 1. Could you generate a state chart for this behavior? Oh, so there is a concept of state chart. Wow. Oh, this is interesting. What is this? Yeah. Ignore additional clicks while incrementing. I added the possibility to decrement as well. Could you update the state chart? Okay, so this is interesting, but this is very, very simplified. But it, like, you could, huh? I wonder what this is. Like, is this some kind of known schema thing? Okay, we're gonna ask you something crazy. Like, I implemented so that when the count is 5, it will open a new page with a traffic light. Yeah, or I don't have to say so that when the count is 5, it will open a new page with the text. Hello, you did it. Could you update the state chart? I'm very curious about it. How would it do this? Oh, this is interesting. Count not reached. This is very interesting. State open page. State for. Huh. Yeah, I'm not sure how, like, it's just interesting. I don't have any idea how this could actually be. But the point is that it's just describing states. It's not describing logic, right? That's the important thing. Is it done? No, still learning. Yeah, this is interesting. But I wonder what this state chart is. On state, on decrement complete, check count. On count. What does this mean? Oh. Yeah, but this is like, it doesn't matter. Well, the problem here is like, how do you transfer this into something executable? Like, you need to use this information for different things. It's not enough to just have. Yeah. And also you have to be able to like go through the code and like regenerate the whole state chart. I think that's kind of tricky. Yeah, what format should, like, it needs to have JavaScript state charts. Like, I know there is a flow chart. Yeah, you have flow charts. But what is that spec? Xstate is based on is based on a spec. Where is that? wonder. Let's see. State charts. What are state machines and state charts? What is a state chart? Yeah, I'm trying to find a link to. That's so cute. It is based on. Yeah, there's a lot of complicated things. Yeah. There is like a concept it's based on. I guess it's just called state charts. Yeah. It's interesting. Like I just have no idea where to take this. Like it is like a representation of actually how the application works. So you wouldn't necessarily implement it like this, right? The point is just it's just to have some representation of the states of the application that an LLM can use to reason about like it can make it part of its context, the reason about how to implement something. But maybe it doesn't need to be. Yeah, I don't know. How are you able to create context from the output of code? Like you can bring, like if it executes, so one thing, like it can just, so with a web application, you can just run the web application, open the URL, and then like the LLM knows nothing about that, but it could get like runtime information, for example, to help you debug and stuff like that. But that's not what we're after here. We're just after that it has context of what this thing is. But maybe this is something like, so what you could do, what we could try is to have like a state chart rag, right? So every time and it just has this state chart. It's yeah. So it's, yeah, it's just like, how should I explain this? So it will be able to extract like relevant state charts for your application as part of building something new. Yeah, I don't know. It just needs a lot of consideration. Okay, let's see if we actually have Firebase in the index. Okay, now we have Firebase in the index store. So let's try again now. I would like to persist the account in a database. How would you approach that? I guess the challenging thing with like Firebase is that there's like different ways to approach it. And like this is the tricky thing. It's not enough to just add a vector store and have this RAG, like this query thing on top. Like it queries database. Like it's not very relevant for, well, yeah. The point is it's not enough just to add a vector database and do semantic search. There's more work needed for that RAG tool to actually give relevant results. And that's the tricky thing. I don't have experience with that. I just know from watching like interviews and tech talks on the subject is that one thing is like embedding context in these vector stores. Another thing is retrieving what you actually want from them. Wow, that took a long time. Okay, interesting. So it did go and grab. Oh, wow, it really. Wow, yeah, it actually did go and grab what we wanted. To persist the content, we can use Firebase, which offers two main database solutions: Firebase Realtime and Firestore. Both are cloud-hosted nodes and that allow real-time data synchronization. Interesting that it says that I need to install it when I have it. Initialize Firebase. That's because like the usage examples, they are based on like, yeah, I don't know. Initialize Firebase. Initialize app. Get Firestore. So this is pretty good. And how to persist the count. Update your app to include Firestore. Did it actually read the app file? Yeah, it did read it. So this should be like correct updates. Create a Firebase configuration file, blah, blah, blah. So we'll update doc, get doc, set doc, db. Yeah, so it has a logo and everything. And then we use an effect to fetch the count from Firestore when the component mounts. So this is kind of like, it's not using the documentation of React to figure out how to do this. It's using its training data. I have the documentation for React, which is, it's tricky. Like you can say, why does that matter? Like React is backwards compatible, but the point is like, I'm not sure if you can ever make this reliable, because like there's so much training data on stale APIs, and yeah, I'm kind of hung up on that. Anyways, so it's fetching the count, and setting the count. Yeah, interesting. So it is doing the right thing. This is interesting. it's kind of weird that it asks it to install the dependency, but that's fine, right? So we're still not made it autonomous. We're just making it suggest how it would approach it. So as part of the instructions of actually performing these tasks, we would tell it wouldn't be able to install dependencies, but that doesn't matter. Yeah, what's also interesting is that our dependency rag doesn't actually return the fact that what dependencies we have. So maybe we should still have a function where you can go and like just ask for the dependencies. So just the keys, right? In dependencies in package.json, so it knows what dependencies is in the project. But it doesn't use that to actually figure out how to do something. Like that could also always be part of the context, because you don't have that many dependencies, so it's fine to include that in the initial prompt. Interesting. Let's see. Okay, so that was interesting. Like it does the right thing. It makes sense what it's suggesting. And it was really cool to see that it was actually using the documentation for Firebase. But what I would also love to do is actually add Firebase. I would like to add Firebase and then ask it to do something. Should that be the next thing? I'm just trying to think about what we should do next. What should we do next? Should we ask it some more? Or should we try the directory summary thing? Or okay, so what I want to do is I have no idea what I want to do now. I kind of just want to test this, and I think it's working. What I do want to do though is I think we should just include the dependencies. So we can do project dependencies. So this would be basically, do we have package.json here? Okay, so what we can do is we can await dependency tool, not call, what is it? Dependency rag, get dependencies. And that's gonna be, and we're gonna map over them. Oh, so we're just gonna read the file. We're not gonna like cache it or anything. Just makes it more complicated. Dependency. I hate that it uses short variable names. Yes, this is what I want. Project dependencies. So what we need to do is go and actually implement this. Can I like tell it to start implementing? Oh. Dependency rag. Where are you? Get dependencies, which would be read. Don't I have like package JSON? Oh, get package. Oh, get dependency package JSON. Okay. What was it? Get file? No, get. God damn it! Was it read file? Yeah. So that would be read file path join this dot. Oh, don't I have the workspace? Oh, god damn it. Okay, let's just pass it in there. All file paths. Public workspace path string. Let's see. New dependency. This workspace path package JSON. So we're going to read that, and then we're going to return object.keys json.parse package json.dependencies. Cool. So that should give us the dependencies. It's very interesting though. You saw that the documentation that it gave was quite big, right? So it means it needs a big context. I wonder how big it was. Well, it isn't crazy big. It's fine. Okay, so now we have the project dependencies and then instructions. Always use them to evaluate what dependencies can be used. What do we want to do? Oh, I wasn't expecting. I was so focused on like just testing the dependency rag that I didn't. Or should we explore like allowing it to actually write contents? Maybe we could do that. So we could give it a function to write file. And then just allow it to do that and see what happens. And then we could like try iterating. Maybe that would be more fun. It's like, okay, let's just make it actually do some stuff now. And then the point is that this is not going to be an assistant. Like we're not going to have this interaction to build up the app. That's not the intention of this agent. This agent is to be embedded into existing projects. And then you can ask it to do something. It goes ahead and does it while you do something else. I don't believe in this Copilot thing. I don't think it makes sense. It's just too high latency. You want them to be autonomous. That's when they give value. Like auto suggestions while you're writing code is great. being able to like do semantic search in your code base makes a lot of sense, but that has nothing to do with LLMs. You don't need a chatbot for that. But having this like back and forward trying to implement something doesn't make any sense to me. So they need to be autonomous. Okay, I think, yeah. My brain is completely stuck. My brain is stuck. Let's see, I just need to review a PR. Let's see. What am I most curious about? Am I most curious about it actually starting contributing code already? Or am I more curious about, like, the point is we need some more code in that project to actually start evaluating how good it is at contributing code. So, okay, I think we should do it. Let's try creating a function that allows it to write a file. By the way, I think we're gonna turn off this watcher. Or maybe not. Yeah, whatever. I'm noticing I'm not really here today. My mind is somewhere else. I'm not sure where it is, but it's definitely not here. So you'll have to excuse that. Okay, so so we can just give it the possibility to write a file, and then we know the workspace path, and we can ensure that the path is valid and all of that. And it also knows the path because it reads the file content. One thing, oh, but this is interesting. You know what? I think one problem with the code rag is that its file path is, So this is what I'm wondering. Like the code rag has these summaries. Then you have this query engine tool, and it does this query. And I'm not sure if it actually returns like, does it actually return the file path in the metadata? Or is it because it looks at the file structure and it sees a file, it reads that file, and it keeps in its context that, oh, I was reading that file. Let's see. LLamaIndex return metadata. Querying. So I don't understand retrieval post-processing. Oh, customizing the stages. Get response. Yeah. So you have the synthesizer. Get response synthesizer. Where is that? Oh my god, this is similarity prev next node post processor. Maybe we can find it here. Query engines, response synthesizer for sending the query nodes and prompt templates to the LLM to generate a response. There are a few key modes. Separate LLM called per node. I can fit within the maximum prompt size. If there are too many chunks of stuff, something less. And the query recursively construct a tree and return the root node as the response. Good for summarization purposes. Given a set of text, apply the query to each text chunk while accumulating the responses into an array. Returns a concatenated string, good for when you need to run the same query separately against each text chunk. You know what? I'm seriously not feeling it today. I'm so distant. So I'm gonna stop the stream, and then I'm gonna do something else. And then if I actually have an idea of what I want to do, I'm gonna do another stream. But yeah, cool. This was great. Like, we got really far here. But I'm a little bit concerned that we have to actually do a lot more work on these rags to make them really work the way we want, which is a good thing, is a really good learning experience, because I think that's where you need to put your learning, is how to make these rags work. But I'm a little bit, in the fog, kind of not sure where to go with it, and also being like super distant. Anyways, we'll talk later. Bye.